live from the Results Operations Centre here in Midrand. Election processing nearing its finalization. South Africa is getting closer and closer to the time before the nation gets to hear the outcomes of that much anticipated, awaited 2024 elections. We saw from the beginning the 2024 general elections have always been anticipated to be a game changer in the history of the country's 30-year democratic era. And with the numbers coming through, we continue to try and make sense of the patterns and the trends, the possibilities, the probabilities at this hour. I'm joined by Professor Pravesh, Debba, as well as Doctor Fikile Vilakazi. They're here with me at the big desk, and we're unpacking all that and more for you here on the SABC. Thanks to the both of you again for staying, and we're obviously getting into some of the nitty-gritties of what the data is reflecting. We were going to look at the seat allocation now on both a national level and then obviously honing in on some of those hung provinces that we saw coming to the fore. Prof, do you want to take us through what you can divulge at this hour, perhaps as we are on 97.22% completion?
So once again, this is based on our model. Absolutely. So it's a prediction. Yesterday I did give, yesterday in Morning Live, I did give the seat predictions.
Yes.
And what I can say from yesterday, what I gave, I can't see more than one seat difference to what I can see today. So I'm very happy with that result as well.
Yes.
So for ANC, yesterday we did say it will end up at 160.
This is the national picture.
This is the national picture, yes, for the National Assembly. So yesterday we did say it will end up at 160, and I see it has now dropped to 159.
Okay.
So one seat less. We cannot say what happens right at the end, but we're looking at around 159, 160. For DA, it's 87 seats. For MK, it's 58 seats at this moment. EFF, at this moment, we're predicting it to be at 39 seats. IFP, we're predicting at 17 seats. PA, 9. Action SA, 6. Freedom Front Plus, 6. ACDP, 3. UDM 3, Aljama 2, ATM 2, Bossa 2, CCC 2, Rise 2, Good 1, PAC 1, UAT 1. So those are the seats.
And that is interesting because there was the introduction of independent candidates, which seem to have also passed the threshold to obtain a seat out of that 400 seats. Well, what do you make of that data before we hone into the provinces?
Well, I mean, it's quite amazing that we are seeing independent candidates actually making it, because they are going to be very, very important in terms of playing a casting vote. Should there be a deadlock, for example, in terms of voting for a particular legislation or passing a budget, even choosing positions in terms of very key positions like the president, or the very key ministries like finance, I would imagine international relations and so on. So those are not to be undermined. They are very, very important in this phase where we are in democracy, because that one vote could turn things around, and we've seen it in local municipalities. But also what it means, Lizelle and viewers at home, just in the top 6, is that we can clearly start to see the direction that the coalitions could take. A very interesting one. I see a possibility of a coalition between the ANC and the EFF in these numbers, the way they are predicted now, possibly bringing in IFP. Right, and that's what, of course, Steenhuisen has been calling a doomsday coalition. And my question is, does South Africa then take the doomsday way, or does South Africa take a different way? Another scenario, which is what I would call a scrambled egg coalition, would be a coalition between the ANC, the DA, and perhaps bringing in IFP. But that is a center-right coalition that will be favored by the markets. And then the question, and I think it's likely to anger South Africans to a certain extent, I mean, for obvious reasons, because we have been stuck in an economy that has not been able to produce jobs, mainly because we took a center-right position. I mean, when I'm saying we here, I'm saying the ANC-led government. Just from RDP to GEAR, we took a 10 there. And I think perhaps the hope of the ANC-EFF arrangement may rebuild public confidence in that we are able to make some kind of necessary returns into an arrangement that balances power between private confidence and public confidence. And it's a very difficult dice to make. But then we may need a policy to be able to make sure that the ANC and the EFF in particular, the IFP has got some numbers to make that work in terms of passing laws, but the ANC and the EFF have got to reach very, very pertinent compromises in relation to the things that have been making them to fight for all these years, which led to the deviation of the EFF, which you now know as a different political party. And that would require possibly legislation, because we've seen that those differences are intense.
No, absolutely. We're going to continue to unpack that. Those are very pertinent scenarios that we're going to have to be considering at this point. Prof, you are also from that national picture for the NA, the seats allocated. Talk to us about some of the provinces, the swing provinces or the hung provinces that came up. Let's see if you could speak to Gauteng, KZN, Northern Cape. Seat allocation and what the representations look like amongst the parties for the seats.
Okay. In terms of the seat allocations for Gauteng, what we're predicting is that ANC will end up at will have 28 seats. And this is out of 80 seats in Gauteng.
Yes,
so ANC 28 out of the 80, DA 22, EFF 11, MK 8, Action SA 3, PA 2, Freedom Front Plus 2, ACDP 1, BOSA 1, IFP 1, and RISE 1. So that's the prediction
for Gauteng.
For Gauteng.
Okay, let's go on to KZN or Northern Cape. I'm not sure what data can come up there.
Okay, I'm trying to just load KZN at the moment. I think, if I remember correctly, KZN is also 80 seats as well. And for KZN, we are predicting MK to end up with 37 seats. IFP 15, ANC 14, DA 11, EFF 2, NFP 1. And the other province you wanted to look at was?
Yes, I think we had offline discussed Northern Cape as well.
Northern Cape, that's right. Yeah, that would be interesting to look at that.
I'm just waiting for the data to come
up.
And Northern Cape, there's 30 seats that's available. And in this case, ANC 15 seats out of the 30, DA 7, EFF 5, PA 3, and Freedom Front Plus 1.
Okay. Western Cape, perhaps, that was also one of the more contentious provinces that we did look at.
Okay, in Western Cape, I'm still waiting for the data to load on, but what we do have is 42 seats in Western Cape. DA should get 24 of the 42, ANC 8, PA 3, EFF 2, ACDP 1, Aljama 1, CCC 1, Good 1, Freedom Front Plus 1. I think yesterday, if I couldn't remember correctly, I don't think in the predictions we had Good as getting a seat, but I do see it now.
Okay, great. All right, so Dr. Fikile, these are interesting numbers that we can now start to look at, because Gauteng, KZN, and the Western Cape that came to the fore. We saw some of the policy issues that it might have also driven some of the sentiments and how voters casted their ballot. But the Northern Cape also quite an interesting turn of events there.
It is. The Northern Cape is quite a huge one for the ANC, because it's been consistently a stronghold. And now the hardest part of it is that it's 15-15.
Yes.
In the sense that it's 15 ANC, 15 to the opposition. And it's going to be hard to negotiate for the Premier, for instance, which has been held by the ANC all along. And I think we did hear from the Northern Cape a couple of days ago, or yesterday, I can't remember, saying that they're not giving up the Premier position. So those are the kinds of things that I really think then a policy framework around coalitions, negotiations, because we don't have a lot of time. We have 14 days, and we are not going to afford South Africa to really spend time fighting for a position of the Premier in the Northern Cape when there's a lot of service delivery issues that need to be looked at. KZN is very clear. I think the governance there will be MK and IFP. you know, if these predictions stand, and it looks like we are getting a premier there from the MK. It will depend on the negotiations. It's quite a very interesting dice that's happening there. Gauteng becomes inevitable. Again, we are going back into a coalition between the ANC, DA, and EFF. The DA here, I see it coming up as a possible decisive factor. And I don't think that we saw this coming in this election, because at national level, the DA is squashed between these three rivalries. Right? And where they really are not finding themselves in terms of agreement, the DA will have to be the decisive factor. Look at the numbers in Gauteng between the ANC and the DA. They're shrinking, right? The gap is closing. And should there be any slip up, you know, in the ANC, we can see the DA rising there, right? So the DA can ask for anything in this particular negotiation, in this election. Literally at national level, the DA could ask for a deputy presidency. The DA could ask for finance, because of the way the numbers are looking now, if the predictions stand. Similarly in Gauteng, the DA could easily say, we want the premier, or, you know, and we want very strategic places. And I think so those are the kinds of tensions that we are likely to see. And we really can't afford a delay because of those tensions. I think we need to guide very, very urgently and immediately outside of this. And Lizel and viewers at home, I don't think it's something that our political parties can do it alone. I really think it needs all of us as a nation. We need to immediately enter into a dialogue, a national dialogue of some kind. Bring all of us together. This conversation is no longer about black and white. It's no longer about young and old. It's about us as citizens of South Africa. The voters have spoken to say, we clearly want something different. We may not be able to articulate what that difference is, because we're seeing the scrambled egg that is emerging. But the scrambled egg is saying, get into a dialogue, have a conversation. CODESA 2. Let us correct what happened at CODESA 1. Probably a Truth and Reconciliation Commission 2. Lizel, because we were not able to resolve, you know, apartheid crimes, for instance, in TRC 1. So it's those kinds of things, and I think we can do these conversations honestly. We are maturing, and we can speak to each other, look at each other in the eye, and say, South Africa, you need a name. South Africa, you need to reorganize.
Let's leave that there. That's a conversation starter where we'll end off this conversation. Thank you very much for the sentiments. Thank you very much for joining us on the SABC at this hour. Professor Pravesh, Debba, Manager for Special Planning and Systems at CSIR. Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, Political Analyst Lecturer from the University of the Western Cape, really joining us here at the big desk at the Rock in Midrand. As the numbers trickle in, we're almost at completion for that counting nationally, provincially. We're looking at what, you know, the trends are indicative of, and I know what the post-election South Africa scenario is going to look like.